Hello, everyone. Welcome to DEEPSIGHT. Let's explore the truth hidden behind history. In the last video, we introduced the early history of Britain. The Anglo-French War took place during the Plantagenet dynasty in Britain. So how was this period formed? Why is it called the Plantagenet dynasty? Let's start with the British inheritance system. Unlike France, Britain allows the royal power to be inherited through female blood relations. If the first child of the British king today is a woman and the second is a boy, will the next king inherit the throne from a girl or a boy? Does his order of succession follow the eldest son, the second son, and then the woman? After watching this video, you will have a clear concept. The history of allowing women to inherit the throne in Britain began in the Middle Ages, but this practice was not widely accepted at the beginning. Initially, Britain, like other Western European royal families, followed the Salic Code to deal with the issue of succession to the throne, which stipulated that women and their descendants had no right to inherit the throne. The first time this rule was strongly challenged was at the end of the Normandy dynasty, when a civil war lasted for 15 years, and the final result was the establishment of the Plantagenet dynasty. The House of Plantagenet, also known as the House of Anjou, is a noble family originating from Anjou, France, and has ruled England since the 12th century. The name of the Plantagenet dynasty comes from the nickname of Henry II's father, Count Geoffrey V of Anjou, who got his name because he put a plant broom on his hat. The family's symbol, a blooming plant broom, symbolizes the prosperity of the dynasty. The first king of England of the Plantagenet dynasty was Henry II, but his kingship came from his mother. William the Conqueror established the Normandy dynasty after becoming King of England in 1066. His son Henry I inherited the throne, and Henry's daughter Matilda married Count Geoffrey of Anjou, and their son was Henry II. Henry's journey to becoming King of England was very bumpy, and he experienced a period of anarchy in England. Henry I originally had a legitimate heir, named William Adelin. William was given the title of Adelin, which means royal in the Old Saxon language, indicating his status as the heir to the throne. William had been fighting on the European continent under his father since he was 17 years old to protect the Norman territory. In 1119, after Henry I defeated King Louis VI of France at the Battle of Brumiller, he decided to prepare his entourage to return to England. Since the king had other plans for his trip, he designated his son William to return to England on a fine ship, the White Ship. There were about 300 entourages on this trip, including knights, ladies, and princes and ministers of the dynasty. However, the passengers and crew on the ship were drunk, and they refused the priests who came to bless the journey. Stephen of Blois decided to take the next ship because of diarrhea. On November 25, 1120, the White Ship left the harbor late at night. Prince William found that other troops had already set sail, so he ordered the captain to row at full speed to try to overtake other ships. But the White Ship hit the reef in the big waves, and a huge crack was torn in the hull. Prince William was thrown into the lifeboat, but after hearing the cries for help from his half-sisters, he ordered the lifeboat to turn around. In the chaos, the lifeboat capsized, and the prince and others fell into the water and died. The only survivor was Berold, a butcher in Rouen. This shipwreck led to the beginning of the period of anarchy in Britain because the death of Prince William, the only legitimate heir of Henry I, left a vacancy in the succession to the throne. Henry I tried to let Matilda, his daughter who married the Holy Roman Empire, return to the country to inherit the throne, but not all nobles supported his decision to establish a female heir. After Henry I's death, his nephew Stephen seized the throne, sparking a 15-year civil war from 1138, also known as the Anarchy. Stephen's seizure of the throne sparked a rebellion by Matilda and her supporters. Matilda, also known as Maud, is a strong woman in English history as the daughter and heir of King Henry I of England. She was born around 1102 and was once the Holy Roman Empress and married to the future Emperor Henry V. After the death of Henry V, Matilda returned to Normandy and married Geoffrey of Anjou, giving birth to the future Henry II. After the death of Henry I, Matilda became the main heir to the throne of England. In 1141, Matilda captured Stephen at the Battle of Lincoln and was recognized as queen by some in London, but she failed to be officially crowned because she failed to gain widespread support. She was called Domina Anglorum rather than queen. At the beginning of the Civil War, the two sides were evenly matched. Matilda controlled much of southwest England and the Thames Valley, while Stephen still controlled southeast England. In 1141, Stephen was captured at the Battle of Lincoln. Matilda tried to be crowned in London, but failed due to the civil uprising and was forced to withdraw from London. Soon after, Robert was defeated and captured in Winchester. Matilda had to negotiate with Stephen's wife Matilda, and the two sides agreed to exchange prisoners of war. Both Stephen and Robert were released. In 1142, Stephen almost captured Matilda during the siege of Oxford Castle, but she escaped on foot across the frozen Thames. The war then stalemated for another 11 years. In 1143, Matilda's husband Geoffrey took control of Normandy, but neither side was victorious in England. In 1147, Robert, Matilda's most important supporter, died of illness. In addition, the Second Crusade caused many supporters of Anjou to leave Europe. Matilda returned to Normandy in 1148, leaving only Henry II, Geoffrey's eldest son, to continue fighting in England. In the early 1150s, most nobles and churches were tired of the war. So many people hoped to end the war through negotiations. In 1152, Stephen wanted to make his eldest son Eustace the heir to the throne, but was rejected by the Catholic Church. In 1153, Henry II attacked England again, but the armies of both sides did not want to continue fighting. At this time, the Church came forward to mediate and hoped that both sides would cease fire. Stephen and Henry II began to negotiate a truce and finally signed an agreement. Stephen could continue to be king, but he had to accept Henry II as his heir. In 1154, Stephen died of illness, and Henry II was finally crowned King of England. The Civil War ended, and the Plantagenet dynasty of the Angevin Empire began. During this period, marriage and women played a major role. Eleanor of Aquitaine, the queen of Henry II, was a more legendary figure than Henry's mother Matilda. Eleanor was the daughter of William X, Duke of Aquitaine. She inherited the Duchy of Aquitaine and became its duchess. Eleanor's marriage was mainly due to the need for political marriage in the Middle Ages. She first married Louis VII, King of France, in order to consolidate the alliance between the Duchy of Aquitaine and the French royal family. However, their marriage failed to produce a male heir, and their personality differences eventually led to divorce. Shortly after the divorce, Eleanor married the future King Henry of England. This marriage was not only due to personal feelings, but also political considerations. Through the marriage with Henry, Eleanor was able to maintain control over Aquitaine, and this marriage also significantly enhanced Henry's political status because he obtained the vast territory of Aquitaine through marriage. Eleanor was a very powerful woman, and both of her marriages greatly influenced the political landscape of Europe at the time. She was called the Grandmother of Europe because her descendants were spread throughout the royal and aristocratic families of Europe. Eleanor was one of the wealthiest and most powerful women in medieval Western Europe. She not only participated in the Second Crusade, but also played an important role in her son Henry the Younger's rebellion against Henry II. Eleanor was a patron of European culture, supporting many poets and artists. Her marriage to Henry II eventually broke down, and she was imprisoned by Henry II for supporting her son's rebellion. Eleanor's life was full of political and personal drama, and her actions had a profound impact on the history of the Plantagenet dynasty and even the whole of medieval Europe. The devastation of the civil wars during the anarchy was extraordinary even by the standards of medieval warfare, and some 12th century chroniclers describe the period as a time when Christ and the saints were asleep. Victorian historians named the period anarchy, meaning without leader, because of the widespread social chaos, administrative deficiencies, and mercenaries and bandits described in their chronicles, although many modern historians question the limited vision and accuracy of the chronicles of the time. In modern English, the word anarchy is used to describe a chaotic situation of anarchy. The reign of Henry II marked the beginning of the Angevin Empire, which stretched from the Pyrenees to the Scottish border. An energetic and well-educated monarch, he encouraged urban development, oversaw economic growth, and made significant advances in the legal system, particularly the development of common law. Henry II and Eleanor had 8 children, 3 of whom became kings. Henry the Young King. Despite being named co-king, he never ruled independently. Richard I, also known as Richard the Lionheart, was a brave warrior and military leader, best known for his role in the Third Crusade. Geoffrey V, Duke of Brittany, whose son Arthur was considered Richard's legitimate heir, but ultimately failed to succeed to the throne of England. John, known as John Lackland, became king after his brother Richard I died. John's reign included important historical events, such as the signing of the Magna Carta. Henry II's daughters also established connections to other European royal families through marriage. Henry II's descendants were spread throughout Europe, including many royals and nobles. His grandsons became rulers and important political figures in England, France, and elsewhere. For example, his grandson Edward I was a powerful king of England, whose reign saw legal and administrative reforms, as well as the conquest of Wales and Scotland. Henry II's lineage continues to this day, and many modern European monarchs can trace their lineage to him. The Plantagenet dynasty had 8 official monarchs who ruled England for more than 200 years, from 1154 to 1399. After Richard II's death in 1399, England was ruled by 2 branches of the Plantagenet dynasty, the House of Lancaster and the House of York. The 2 families fought for the throne, and the War of the Roses broke out in the second half of the 15th century. In terms of culture and art, during the Plantagenet dynasty, British culture and art gradually took shape, and Geoffrey Chaucer, a representative poet of medieval literature, lived in this era. Gothic architecture was popular during this period, and the famous Westminster Abbey and York Minster were rebuilt according to this architectural form. In addition, the Plantagenet dynasty also witnessed the origin of the English Parliament and the Model Parliament, as well as the establishment of educational institutions such as Oxford University and Cambridge University. The political climate of this period was changeable, including representative historical events such as the 100 Years' War. So what changes have taken place in the British inheritance system? Henry II inherited the throne and founded the Plantagenet dynasty. This was the first time in medieval Europe that the throne was not inherited according to the Salic law, marking the beginning of female succession to the throne. In the Tudor dynasty, Henry VIII changed the rules of succession to the throne in order to ensure that there were legitimate heirs. He mentioned the inheritance rights of his 2 daughters in his will, which led to Mary I and Elizabeth I becoming queens one after another. In 1701, the United Kingdom promulgated the Act of Succession to the Crown, which clearly stipulated the order of succession to the throne. The throne of the monarch is hereditary from generation to generation, and both men and women have the right of succession. This law seems to be equal for men and women on the surface, but it must also follow the principle of eldest sons take precedence over second sons, and sons take precedence over daughters. In 2011, the United Kingdom further reformed the constitution, giving royal women and men the same rights in succession to the throne, ending the practice that only male members of the royal family can become the first heir to the throne. This change means that if the first child of the royal family is a woman, she will be the first heir to the throne in the future. Therefore, in the future British royal family, it is likely that women and male kings will share the throne equally. The progress of the times is the result of gender equality. These changes reflect the evolution of the concept of succession to the British throne, from the initial male priority to the modern inheritance law of equality between men and women. In this process, special historical circumstances and political needs played a key role, gradually shaping the tradition of British women inheriting the throne. The political, economic, religious, cultural, and artistic systems of the Plantagenet dynasty are very complex and fruitful. The political system of the Plantagenet dynasty witnessed important developments in the constitutional history of England. The most famous was the Magna Carta signed by King John in 1215, which limited the power of the king and laid the foundation for the subsequent constitutional development. In addition, the formation of the English Parliament and the Model Parliament during the Plantagenet period also marked the early development of parliamentary democracy. England during the Plantagenet period also witnessed the development of cities and economic growth. Henry II encouraged urban development and supervised economic growth. The development of customary law during this period also promoted the standardization of economic activities. The Plantagenet dynasty had a close relationship with the church. Churches and religious buildings occupied a central position in the spiritual life of medieval English people. Monarchs used the power of religion to maintain their secular power and proved that their power came from God. English culture and art gradually took shape during the Plantagenet period. Geoffrey Chaucer, the poet who best expressed the spirit of medieval literature, lived in this era. London's architectural activities were very active during this period, especially driven by the Gothic architectural style. Several famous buildings began to be built, the most famous of which was Westminster Abbey, which underwent significant construction and renovation. It is an outstanding example of English Gothic architecture, especially during the reign of Henry III, when the eastern part of the church was rebuilt to accommodate a more magnificent design. The Tower of London, which we are familiar with, was originally built during the Normandy dynasty, but it was greatly expanded and improved during the Plantagenet dynasty. Many defensive structures and living areas were added during this period, making it a solid fortress and royal palace. London Bridge during the Plantagenet period was a wooden bridge, which was later replaced by a stone bridge in 1209. This stone bridge was the only bridge over the Thames in London for most of the Middle Ages and was also a landmark of the city. Important symbol. The most powerful and specialized educational institutions in Europe, such as Oxford University and Cambridge University, were also established during this period, which laid a strong foundation for the subsequent rise of Britain. Dear viewers, this is the content of our historical exploration in this issue. In the next issue, we will reveal the story of the War of the Roses for you in depth, with more excitement and more legends. I am your time travel navigator, Lawrence. By learning from people, we can understand gains and losses. By learning from history, we can know the rise and fall. Let us understand the distant past and foresee a bright future. Thank you for watching and accompanying. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the little bell to get more exciting content about history. See you next time.